I had a conversation with the president in the year 2000, just in the heat of the campaign. And I asked him randomly that who does he think is the best lawyer in Ghana? In those days, President Akufo-Addo had conducted many Supreme Court cases for the New Patriotic Party, for demonstrations, for independent media, and he had regularly been confronted by Dr. Obed Asamoah, who was the Attorney General in court. So when I asked this question, I thought that he was going to jokingly point to himself. But I was surprised that the president took the question quite seriously. And he started thinking. So for about half a minute, he didn't say anything, he was still thinking. I began to throw names at him. I said, J.K. Ajema. He nodded. I said, CBK Zuenis. He nodded again. Then I wanted to get his attention and get the question answered. So I said, what about Obed Asamoah? Then he smiled and said, Obed is an able man, and that all the names that I have mentioned are very distinguished. But these were his words. Because of 31st, he thinks for his generation, the best lawyer is Peter Allah Ajete. Give you, our distinguished audience, an insight into one of the stories in the book. And the book catalogs all the stories that have defined the Fourth Republic from the beginning until the end. This particular story occurs on the 28th of December, 1993. It's a story whose relevance has shaped what has happened in the Fourth Republic. So on this occasion, on the 28th December 1993, the news media had published on the 26th of December 1993 a timetable of the celebration of activities for the end of the year. For the last 10 years before 1993, that list had looked the same. It will usually announce that the Christmas Day and Boxing Day were to be observed as statutory public holidays. It will also announce that the 31st December would be observed as a public holiday. This announcement was made sometime around the 24th of December. On the morning of the 28th of December, Peter Allah Ajete took out a writ to the Supreme Court to suggest to the court that the celebration of 31st December was contrary to the Constitution. The 1992 Constitution says in its very early clauses that the Constitution is the fundamental law of the land, and any other law found to be inconsistent with the Constitution was, to the extent of the inconsistency, null and void. Peter Alajete was suggesting to the Supreme Court that the celebration of the 31st December Revolution under the Constitution was inconsistent with the Constitution. This was a very major issue. Today, we may not see how major it was, but it was a major issue. Ajete went to court with very little in his hands, and the court started around 9 o'clock. 9 Supreme Court judges were hearing the matter. Ajete was going to tell the court on a moral issue that the Constitution should not have a situation where it is celebrating the event of a coup d'etat. He considered a coup d'etat abhorrent to a constitution. Now, how do you have a constitution in 1992, started in January 93, and then you are celebrating 31st December Revolution? So he went to court. It became more difficult when, at the outset of the case, the learned Chief Justice, the learned Philip Archer, indicated clearly that he was not willing to lead the Supreme Court to make rulings that, as he looked at it, that the court cannot protect. He wanted the courts to be able to make rulings that can have the coercive authority of states to back those rulings. He asked Ajete time and time again during the oral argument that if the court were to rule that 31st December was not a holiday, how will the court enforce it? Do they have armored vehicles to enforce it? Because this celebration was being organized by the government and especially soldiers. So, right at the outset of the case, Peter Ajeti had questions to answer, but he persisted. At 11 o'clock, the court decided to rise and announced that they will be given a verdict at 2 p.m. that afternoon. The whole Ghana Bar Association was captured in frenzy, wondering what was going to happen today. For you to get a better understanding, the president of the day, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, was also the leader of the military junta that had organized the 31st December revolution. They had been in power for 11 years, and they had formed a party and successfully been elected in November 1992. This celebration was very, very important to the head of state. And here we were, the learned Chief Justice had given clear indications that he was not going to give a ruling that the court cannot protect. So some of those lawyers told people between 11 and 2 o'clock that the fact that the court had asked to come back at 2 o'clock gave a lot of hope and insight into what the court was likely to do. This was the first major test of the new Supreme Court under a new constitution, confronted with the major challenge of interpreting an act of the revolution, which was now part of the constitution, to be inconsistent with the constitution. Philip Archer seemed to make a lot of sense because he said it is also part of democracy that when a court gives a ruling, the court must be respected and must gain that respect and the trust of the people. The court should not give a ruling where people will disobey it. But alas, the 5 judges in the minority, in the majority, were seduced by the principles of natural law. They felt that how can you have a coup d'etat being celebrated under a constitution? That a coup d'etat was the most important abhorrent to a constitution. A coup d'etat and a constitution are like heaven and hell. The constitution is heaven and the coup d'etat is hell. So they didn't know how you can combine heaven and hell under a constitution. They decided that in spite of the fact that the court may not have armored vehicles to make a decision, that they will make a decision against the celebration of a coup d'etat under the 1992 constitution. This ruling was met, as expected, by invectives from the ruling government. As expected, his first reaction to the ruling, which was a 5-4 decision cancelling the celebration of 31st December, was that, as according to J.J. Rawlings, that no one can obliterate 31st December from the history of Ghana. This is what Flight Lieutenant Rawlings said. Many of his ministers took turns to attack the court at a military parade organized on 31st December nonetheless. They argued that they were organizing a parade and a route march to commemorate the end of the year and the beginning of a new year. So they organized the parade anyway. Some people felt at that time that Philip Archer was right because the soldiers went ahead to celebrate. But after many years, when we put this book together, we thought that it is important that a national monument be made to remember those judges who gave us this constitutional authority and set Ghana clearly on a new agenda, put out a loud announcement to the military junta and to the whole world that Ghana was new. Honorable Foreign Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the book is recommending that the following men be immortalized in the history of Ghana. I mentioned their names: N.Y.B. Adade, J.R.M. Francois, Justice K.E. Amwasage, Justice J.E.K. Akins, and Justice Hayfron Benjamin. Their names are written in gold as far as this 1992 Constitution is concerned. A round of applause for them as they have all passed. We also must mention the courage of Peter Allah Ajeti, who went to court that day and decided that he will test this 31st December when it looked like it was not even useful to test it. Peter Alajete, of course, later became the Speaker of Parliament during the tenure of the first MPP administration and the third Parliament of the Fourth Republic. How did this story find its way into our book? So many years ago, I had a conversation with the president in the year 2000, just in the heat of the campaign. And I asked him randomly that who does he think is the best lawyer in Ghana? In those days, President Akufo-Addo had conducted many Supreme Court cases for the New Patriotic Party, for demonstrations, for independent media, and he had regularly been confronted by Dr. Obed Asamoah, who was the Attorney General in court. So when I asked this question, I thought that he was going to jokingly point to himself. But I was surprised that the president took the question quite seriously. And he started thinking. So for about half a minute, he didn't say anything, he was still thinking. I began to throw names at him. I said, J.K. Ajema. He nodded. I said, CBK Zuenis. He nodded again. Then I wanted to get his attention and get the question answered. So I said, what about Obed Asamoah? Then he smiled and said, Obed is an able man, and that all the names that I have mentioned are very distinguished. But these were his words. Because of 31st, he thinks for his generation, the best lawyer is Peter Alajete. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how the story finds its way in our book on page 35, story number 5, entitled J.J. Rawlings, Rude Awakening to the New Democracy, the 31st December court case. We shall never forget the work of Justices N.Y.B. Adade, G.R.M. Francois, K.E. Amwasechi, G.A.K. Akins, and Charles Heffron Benjamin. May their names be written in gold.
The traditional foods are yedin starch and carbohydrates mu bebre. But true green food, yes, starch and carbohydrates no, and kids way be a womb, and very healthy. A booming who buy free to say diabetes, kidney failure, cholesterol, hypertension, cancer, and any kekakikamo. True green food or more breakfast options to say cocoa, Tom Brown, oatmeal, and any kekakikamo bebre.
True green food.
Oh yes, our products now are 100% organic and natural. So we have the only to me deliver my baby a
Me did the young antechua, and maybe I'm discovered for Europe. I come a bush for Ghana. No, me used to tap send. Tap send. No fee mobile money transfer. Easy, convenient, fast, and sounds so free. Won't you share? Me discover ye map him. Tap send. Intienne, also download the Tap Send app no ever mobile phone so free. Na first ka komo abusuya for Ghana fa na nyina. Tap Send. Papa no.
Hello, love.
Gary, do you have Mommy's parcel for her big day?
The shipping company says it will take 1 month.
A month? Gary, use Rapid.
Rapid?
Rapid courier ships from the United States to Ghana and 9 other African countries within 3 to 5 days. Log on to rapidgroup.com, buy, ship to us, and we deliver right to your doorstep.
That fast? Yes, that's Rapid for you. Can you sign this?
I thought you only ordered Mommy's parcel.
No, I ordered a few car parts too.
Are you too busy to shop? We will shop for you. Rapid also has a luggage delivery service, so you can make that extra luggage and we will deliver at the lowest rate.
Rapid Courier. Just shop. We deliver. Enjoy.
Spices day and one Remy spices or dinner Remy dependable.
Remy spices, Remy.
Young papa, what the Remy spices you are and what you are fine. Remy spices, dear, so who you swap. And for spices for Biafra. Flavors not so dear, baby. Chicken, goat, jollof, stew, spices bi a wohwehwɛ no Remy will be home. And for aduane die ento chacha. Remy Spices. E ma aduane ye dekeke.
Alacados Properties is ready to relieve you from the stress of finding units and setting up viewings or sell your house. Connect with Alacados Properties. We are specialized in sales and rentals of properties, property management, and consulting.
Alacados Properties is a real estate agency we work with, and we are committed to giving their guests the best experience in accommodation. You can also rely on Alacados Properties to find your long or short-term accommodation whilst in Ghana.
African market, and I'm Papa. African market. Order for so blonze ha. Now open African market. Papa didra. Mo akoma to yem dia. Malata African market. Edem sronko. Smoked fish, meat, dry fish. Sao kenki, rice, yam, fufu flour ni nnuane ahodo afiri Africa. Afei, ye want to ma papa. Bo wire kente, adamma se kente. Ahweni ahodo. Ani nneoma bebre. Na wobenya wo Malata African market. Hwehwe ye chi akwan ene number e wo screen so. Malata African market. African market mu King Kong. Malata African market. And I'm Papa. African market. African market.
At Diaspora Insurance, we understand the importance of dignified send-offs within Ghanaian culture and traditions. We also understand that you want to avoid the double trauma of your family grieving and not having the financial support to cover funeral expenses when you're not around. With our Diaspora Funeral Cash Plan, you can now cover yourself or your family in Ghana or abroad. With no medicals required, we'll accept you if you are under 75 years. Visit our website today or call us to complete a simple form in under 5 minutes. With Diaspora Insurance, your